the FCC and access was available, asked for information from the different ISPs, and then created a broadband map with address-specific location information. We were able to get access to that and share that with our vendor and be able to look at that compared to some of the other data and get more detailed infrastructure information than we've ever had before. We were also able to compare that to our MHUD database, so understanding where our housing database and that who had affordable housing and what things looked like, and being able to once again get a more specific look at what our infrastructure actually access was in the county. We also had a number of stakeholder interviews. So once again, looking at not only the infrastructure data, but kind of the perspective of what do people think, and talking to the different service providers who support the community within Arlington and kind of their perspectives of challenges and what's working and what's not working. And then obviously comparing to national data. Well, how do we look nationally? I think the conjunction of all of this information together, it's the first time we were able to dive into it at that level and really get very specific of what we have and what we don't. Go to the next slide. So just really quick, because everyone hears often, we have Connect Arlington, and Connect Arlington is a fiber infrastructure that was put in place to support the schools, support the county buildings, support public safety, support with ITS, which is our intelligent traffic system. So all of the lights, and then allows public safety to be able to have other means of communication. There was two different types of interest also that were aligned with Connect Arlington. One is that there was additional fiber that was put in place to support economic development. And then also it's kind of the basis of, well, hey, can we use this from a kind of a public good perspective? One of the things that's important to know is that Connect Arlington is a middle mile network. So what that means is the fiber runs throughout the county, and you can see the blue is connecting to, or the purple, I guess, is connecting to schools and county facilities and supporting the traffic system. And then the blue is for the economic development. But what it is it does not go to specific buildings or specific households or completely throughout the county. So while it's there and it is an asset, if anything were to be done to support homes, if there is more investment that is needed. So it's considered a middle mile network. We also offer it if anybody's interested from kind of anyone wanting to be an ISP to be able to utilize it, and there is an actual license agreement that they can participate in to have access to it. So go to the next slide. So what do we have in Arlington? So not surprising, but knowing us in more detail, 95% of Arlington has access to high-speed broadband internet coverage. Where we found some of the areas that do not have some of the coverage that we're expecting is kind of where it's funny that they said, think about it as a rural area. So, we are definitely not a rural area. We're absolutely more urban, but where some of the challenges in the coverage were areas that were not as urban. So the areas where you see like a lot of buildings, so obviously the main corridors of Roswell and Boston, Route 1, Columbia Pike are very well served. You'll see in the little slide to the next is where we looked very hard also at competition. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Oh, and the table. So you read the numbers. So what you see is where we have competition, so ISP, so Comcast, Verizon, Starry, T-Mobile is a different type of entrant, and several others. Most of Arlington is served by 1 to 2 ISPs at a level of speed that we've defined, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. So when you think about, do we have competition from our perspective? Not all of Arlington, but most of Arlington does. Do you want to go to the next slide? So not only is it competition, but we're also looking at speeds. So we were looking very hard to say, what are benchmarks? What do people need? So you see 99% of Arlington has 100 over 20. And that's, you know, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the kind of the speeds and not even ages ago, maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, the speeds were 10/1. And then they bumped them up what the standards were a little bit higher to 25/3. And then with the pandemic, you see it moving a little bit higher. The new federal funding that's available, if you want to use it for infrastructure, they set a benchmark of 100/100. So that's what we were looking at. So even though right now 99% has 100/20, and you can see the map is very small, as you can see. Most of Arlington has that. There are only 46 locations in Arlington that do not have the federally designated speed. So we think there's 35,000 locations, 46 of them in Arlington don't have the level of speed that the federal government is requiring.
I'm sorry, is that 100/20 or 100?
Yeah, which is, sorry. So it's 100/20. We are looking at, for our benchmark, we used 100/100. So Comcast right now is committed to, by the end of the year, increasing. They are at a lower bandwidth than 100/100, but we will be able to have 100/100 in most of the county by the end of the year. So that will only leave 83 locations. And then when you take that 183 locations, you take away things like parking lots and certain parks. There are a very small number of locations in Arlington that will not have access to 100/100 bandwidth speed. One of the things that was interesting is that we found that it seems that commercial buildings seem to be higher impacted at those 100/100 than some of the residential. Can we go to the next slide? Since I was talking a little
Can I
bit.
ask a question? Are the locations of the 83, are they in a certain area of the city? Are they all over?
They're all over.
Thank you.
Like I said, and when we looked at, or the vendor looked at, sorry, the contractor looked at, so the number of them really aren't really going to be serviceable anyway. So the location is not equivalent exactly to like a residential address or a business address, but it was what the FCC was using. So it has an address, but like I said, it could be a parking lot. The Pentagon is considered a location. So there's several others that are, so they've actually gone through and filtered, and I want to say it's
4. There's only 4 after kind of looking and doing more deep dive into these 83 locations. So really, pretty well served. I have virtually no locations that lack proper internet access from a physical infrastructure standpoint.
What's the difference between availability and affordability? How much of this is not affordable?
So what we will, what we were finding is that is a big question still that we have a challenge with. And when we get to that, Jennifer, we'll actually dive into that. Just wanted to highlight, because we talked about the broadband choice, and so we used our benchmark of 100/100. And a couple of the insights that we found was that the affordable housing property locations, they were equally served from broadband choice, as well as the other residential areas within the county. One of the other, I guess, misnomers was our garden style are less impact or have better access than others. And we were able to find is that garden style and the high-rise MDU buildings also have competition. There are some that maybe are limited, but most of them have competition. One of the things in the tools that we were looking at is what do we have access to? The cable franchise agreement. So cable franchise agreement is not for internet access. It is for TV, and most people are moving away from cable. But it potentially could be a lever that we have access to help promote and get access to some of the locations. So the cable franchise requires right now that the Comcast and Verizon, who are the only 2 entities that have cable franchise agreements with the county, access all of the county. So once again, that's cable, that's not internet. But how can we use that to promote internet access? Next slide. And I'll turn it over to Jennifer, who will get to the question you're looking for.
Yeah. So Holly basically touched on the physical infrastructure and what's available here. And we're pretty well served, as she walked us through. But we're not totally equitable. And I think where that comes from is our affordability challenges, and there's other challenges too, digital literacy. This slide, and this is our consultant's presentation that we're just kind of walking through. They have up here racial equity and various statistics by race in the county. And I think generally what we found is for affordability, we have fairly high incomes and we're able to generally afford the internet service that the market provides. Where there's that disconnect though is around $70,000 to $75,000 annual income. And so that's kind of what we're starting to look at when you compare that to the area median income, and 30% is at 50%. That's around like 50% of the area median income. We think about who is impacted, by and large, older adults for sure, but also people of color are more likely to be of low incomes, and so they're more likely to be impacted by lack of access because of affordability. And then also we found with digital literacy and the households that have limited English proficiency, they're also at higher risk because of just general understanding and digital literacy issues. They're more impacted. So I wanted to point out something, and you can see from the table that people of color are more likely to lack a home computer. They're more likely to lack a home internet subscription and a broadband internet subscription, just means it's fast. Older adults, they're actually, so Arlington County as a whole, 5.3% lack of broadband subscription. Among older adults, it's three times that, 15.3% of adults that are older than 65 don't have a broadband subscription, don't have an internet subscription. It's about double that number. And then with no computer, Arlington County, 3.4%. You can see people of color more likely. With older adults, 10.3% of older adults lacking a computer. You go to the next slide. Actually, one thing that I wanted to point out before going to the next slide, there was a national study done, and I think it was important because I think it highlighted that really income is truly the biggest barrier here. When you hold income constant and look at the numbers by race, really there's no differences in race at the higher income levels. It's really at the lower income levels that we're talking about. And because in Arlington County, people of color are more likely to be low income, they're more impacted. So you can go to the next slide. This is, there's a couple of things that we found out from the e-checkup assessment. And one of the things that they looked at was your satisfaction. I think that was one of the biggest things we gleaned from our e-checkup was perception of the value of internet service and your satisfaction with various elements like reliability and speed. And what we found was that lower income households had lower satisfaction with their internet. And we're not totally sure. We don't know exactly why, but it could be because they can't afford the appropriate or adequate service that they need. And so it's a little slower, or they might not have the adequate device that's needed at home, like a router or a modem that's sufficient. So it's causing them to have spotty service when if they would have just had a better router, then they would have had better service. And we also found out well, this kind of ties back to choice, but one thing we found was when there's more providers there, that you're more likely to have or feel like you have better service. Regarding older adults, one of the things that the e-checkup gave us was, I guess, there was a question around barriers and telehealth. And I think that older adults felt like a big barrier to using and accessing telehealth services was unsure of what the quality of those telehealth services were like, and a lack of understanding of how to access it and technical skills to use it. So I think that's an important, I guess, item that we found from the e-checkup. And I think generally speaking, with regards to the households that households that are of lower income, we found that the various subsidy programs that exist at the federal level, like the Affordable Connectivity Program, Lifeline Program, they're severely underutilized. And so we know we could kind of see the writing on the wall. That's going to be a big recommendation that the consultants will give to us, is to really figure out a way to increase outreach and improve the utilization of these programs that are already out there. Yeah.
Quick question. Whenever had a chance to talk about connectivity, some organizations, they ask, we have clients who are immigrants, and the follow-up question is, do you have to have status in order to sign up for these things? So is that an issue? I mean, in order to sign up for Comcast, you have to say, you know, here's my driver's license or anything along those lines.
Yeah, well, first you have to verify your eligibility. Before you even deal with an internet provider, you verify your eligibility with the federal kind of application process. I cannot recall if that is a requirement. I have not seen that in the materials, and so that would lead me to say you don't have to document that. It's really truly income-based. But I don't want to say for sure. I feel like I did.
It is not a requirement for the portable connectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
the
thank
question was, I don't know whether it was to that or to just an ISP general that counts.
Generally, but that's helpful, Doug, yeah. Because, you know, I think.
It is certainly not required to get Comcast service.
Okay, great, that's helpful. Because, you know, it connects to older adult isolation. And of course, one way to get over that is through the internet. And if, you know, just like most things, you know, there are people who are at more risk of isolation than others, you know, low income, ESL, as you noted, women, immigrants, et cetera. So yeah, just to know that whether that's a barrier or not is of interest. Okay, so thank you both for the update.
And you can go to the next slide.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
So going back to some of the slides you were showing, the slide said computer. Does that include all devices or just computers?
Yeah, this statistic is all devices.
Okay.
Yeah, but the census does break it down. If you have like a smartphone and no other computer. And so we do have some of that in the report actually. But the statistics that you saw, it was just like no computer device whatsoever.
So you said earlier that you weren't sure why there was a higher level satisfaction, dissatisfaction in certain groups, right?
Yeah, well, we didn't ask that question in the e-checkup, so we can't kind of tie it to the response, but we can, you know, infer and make some assumptions.
Suspect that
Yeah,
that's
we just
related.
have suspicions.
Yeah, because a lot of times it's about affordability, what kind of plan you have,
Yeah,
but also even kind of services provided by ISPs. I mean, if you are a non-English speaking person and try to access service, it is ridiculous. And it's so insulting when you hear press 1 for Spanish and the dialect or accent is so thick you can barely understand it. It's like, why bother? And I think providers have the same problem, that if it's only Spanish, that's one language of
Right.
So it is an issue about satisfaction.
And like that part, that aspect, I think we were able to get in some of that from the e-checkup as well as from some of the stakeholder, you know, so as I think we're leaning towards like that support structure, right? And the digital literacy, what do we need? What are the recommendations and what do we need to be doing from a policy perspective to help and get over that?
So when you talk about digital literacy, what does that mean?
So I think for right now, it's a broad range of areas. Are you comfortable? Do you know how to get on the internet? Are you comfortable operating on the internet? Are you comfortable getting access? And then thinking of like, how do we support those potential needs?
Because the other part of that, I think critically, I think non-digital literacy and more about media literacy, because there's a lot of abuse, a lot of spam,
Yeah.
a lot of, I mean, one of my
Yeah.
friends, his father his account was hacked into, and they took $1 million. And he didn't have the sense to even begin to know how
Yeah,
to intervene.
That security aspect is also brought up, and
But
that's
also
something
about
that, yeah.
misinformation, disinformation, people don't know how to navigate about that.
That was actually privacy and security was brought up in the e-checkup, and then also especially in our conversations with the Department of Human Services, the Employment Center, just talking about barriers to using the internet, concerned about privacy. A lot of the clients that the Employment Center serves, they talk about the need, they're worried about using the internet because of that. So you're touching on a lot of stuff we found out and uncovered through this process. So a lot of what's here was gathered through the interviews with stakeholders. The consultants interviewed probably about 70 stakeholder groups and people representing a wide range. And there was a lot of people, especially focused on safety net organizations or folks that are targeted to the low-income population. And they work across the country. So they were really impressed with what we had, generally speaking. I mean, we want to improve, but generally from what they see across the country, we have a lot of different things going on. So they wanted to highlight that. And there's a lot of community-based organizations out there doing a lot of really good work. I think that the problem, and we'll get to this in a couple of slides, but the problem is we have a limited scaled approach. So we're doing Holly mentioned a lot of pilot projects. We've done a lot of pilot projects here or there, or we've funded, someone wants to try something out. So we funded that and they're trying that out, but we don't have a concerted, scaled approach to digital equity. I think what we've done so far, it shows successful engagement, and it's just a matter of building on those successes to address the scale of the issue. And then I think another thing that they flagged in several conversations was that there's not enough devices to serve the community members for those that lack an appropriate device, and even devices internal to the organization to do their operations function well. Next slide, please. So a couple of the highlighted strengths that they had, a lot of our affordable housing providers, APA, Wesley, AHC, they're doing a lot to provide either in-unit Wi-Fi for residents, whether that's in their unit. They also have community rooms that have computers and free internet. And they're working with the county and doing various partnerships. The library has an extensive amount of public computers for access, and there's also hotspots that you can rent through the library. Parks and Recreation, especially the 55+ program, they're doing a lot with with the older adult population. But they're doing a lot to promote digital equity and training and improve access. Holly had mentioned Arlington Public Schools. And so they are pretty proud of the fact that every student that has requested assistance, they've been able to give them something, whether that's subsidizing Comcast Internet Essentials or additional connectivity, they've been able to assist. And then on the business side, we have our Biz Launch program, which is really successful. There's a significant amount of demand. There's a wait list for that program. And so that's something we should definitely consider possibly growing, but they've done a lot related to getting businesses mostly around digital literacy, around what a business needs to be successful and grow their company using online platforms. Please go to the next slide. But again, as I mentioned previously, there's a shortage of devices. We need to figure out how can we get devices into the hands of those who need it. And I also mentioned scale. It's really missing. We've done so many pilots. We need to sort of figure out, okay, what's working and kind of fund it appropriately so that we can, again, kind of implement at the scale that's in need. I think that, they also mentioned facilities possibly reconsidering when they're open to maybe match the needs that folks need access to, we don't have it at home and reliant on public access. And then I think the biggest takeaway for us that kind of relates to the scale piece is that we don't have a common digital equity policy framework that we're working under. So all the departments that are doing something, they're kind of doing it in their own way, which is good. But I mean, we could really benefit from having a common policy framework, similar to what we've done with the racial equity framework and equity resolution, and figure out how do we streamline it so that all the departments are kind of working together on one common goal around digital equity. And the next slide, please. Kind of wrapping up, we've completed the first of 3 phases of this project. So what we're trying to do with this needs assessment, it really kind of set a baseline for what do we have and what we need. And what we're going to do next is do this model evaluation, where we're going to choose 4 different internet delivery models, and they kind of range from county involvement. So there's an extreme example of kind of setting up a wireless service authority, which is kind of I don't know if you've heard of a broadband authority, but under the Virginia Act, you can do that and kind of run your own internet service. And so we're considering that as kind of the extreme end. On the other side, maybe there's just a policy solution that we could do. Holly had mentioned the cable franchise agreement. Maybe we set a policy around that instead of investing in kind of the more extreme example. And then there's a few in between. Financial subsidies is one of them to those who are cost burdened. So we wanted to kind of compare this from an objective standpoint, look at the cost to do it, and also the risks, the challenges of implementing each, because they all come with pros and cons. So from there, then we're going to have a strategic recommendations phase where the consultant is putting together a list of recommendations. They're going to say, okay, well, after looking through the various options, this is the one, or these are the combination of ones that we would recommend for you, back them by some case studies. And then there's going to be other recommendations that aren't related to the modeling effort, like especially around digital literacy and outreach and increasing the participation in the Affordable Connectivity Program. So that's what we're doing. And we hope that after we're all done, it really gives a good understanding of what we have, but then also what we should do. And I think it's going to spur a lot of good conversations, and especially at the board level, which I think is going to be great to sort of start to hopefully put a framework, a policy framework together, and then implementation action. Yeah.
Is there any sense of exactly what people use when they have access? It's one thing to just use your telephone to call, it's another thing for email, another thing for text messaging, it's another thing for social media. Do we have any sense of the usage of the internet? And actually,
When you say usage, do you mean like the speed that's used, or do you mean like
no, the
what
content of what people, content that people are using.
We do, there was questions related to that in the e-checkup actually, but I'm not sure how useful it was, because it was generally like everyone was using all the things except for like business practice. There was one where it was like for business practices. I forget the exact wording of it, but I think about like Etsy or Facebook Marketplace, how you can sell things. And it was like that kind of a platform, and that had a lower percentage of people using it in that way. But I think a lot of, and there was a higher proportion of the low income using for government services, which kind of makes sense to me. But I think a lot of people are using it for research. I think was one of the highest ones
for jobs.
job searching, and in general, like government services.
Well, and I think on the telehealth side, I think, I mean, it was there, but I mean, as you're watching and hearing some of the news now, I mean, that is, you know, they're making it more of a standard after COVID that is allowed. I think you're going to continue to see the growth and acceptance of that. One thing I want to go back to is that our focus is broadband in the home. So we're not saying you're not going to use your phone and realize that, but like really how do you make sure that you get access in your house? And that you're not using just your phone to connect, because if you're trying to do some of those things on a phone, yes, you can do them, but are you as capable of doing it on your phone as you would be on a computer? So that's kind of where we're focusing.
Well, one of the things I was kind of getting at is goes well beyond the study, but it's looking to the future. I mean, the use of AI for particularly for seniors, example that was given about a person's account having $1 million taken out of it. I mean, there's so much potential for being able to protect seniors using AI that we don't, I mean, it's really futuristic right now, but I hope that's somewhere on somebody's table.
So it's futuristic for this country. However, within the Department of Technology Services, we're having a lot of conversations right now about AI, not only for how the work that we're doing internally in the county, but kind of just the awareness and understanding of what that means. So this, but I think you're right. We are having conversations, but I will definitely bring it back. Like, are we thinking? Because I'm sure they are, but to what extent are we, and how do we kind of loop, everybody in?
And this table, we're particularly concerned about the older adults, which is a whole different kind of a thing. Obviously, this is a subject of great interest to us and has been. This is a wonderful introduction, and we'll be looking periodically to come back because we're determined to get the older adults. This is an impossible thing. How do we get them into the current 21st century?
That keeps moving forward.
That keeps
That's really
moving
the AI question. I think it's fascinating. Like, every time you're there, it's going to keep moving forward.
Yes.
And
Jim,
Thank you very much for your.
I think Jim had a question.
One more question?
Yeah.
Yeah, an observation really, when you find people who are having trouble with getting on the internet or with their computers, et cetera, they generally don't know which piece of the action they have a problem
Right.
with. And so consequently, they're faced with a whole lot of stovepipes. Now, I call this number for broadband, I call this number for my computer not working. When they really want to find out where they should go to solve their problem. So are you looking in your strategy about how the county might serve a single point of direction for people who have a problem but don't know where that problem exists, whether it's in the computer or in broadband or where?
Yeah, that's good.
That's a.
When you come up with it, give it to Comcast.
That's a really good point. And that was brought up from a couple of different places in the stakeholder outreach. And I think that, I guess one thing to point out with the strategic recommendations, we're letting the consultant, and I'm not sure if they'll talk about that specifically, like a single point of contact for those kind of issues. I know they're going to be, I think they're going to be recommending like a broadband manager or digital equity manager. I'm not sure what they'll recommend calling it, but, and that could potentially serve that function. I'm not sure. But the strategic recommendations, we're letting them kind of, based on what they understand about our community and work that they've done across the country, we're letting them put together kind of independent recommendations. And we're just making sure that they're sound and they're backed by, the research that we've done. Then we're not sure, but we suspect that we'll then enter into kind of like a staff-led implementation framework where we're taking what they did, we might add our own, or we might do something different and then create kind of staff-led series of recommendations afterwards. So
We'll keep urging.
yeah, but I think it's important, and I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't show up in either our staff-led action framework or the consultants' recommendations, because you brought it up, but it was brought up several times over the process.
And this is where, to me, the study is so interesting, because you're saying, we're someone said they have a problem with the internet. And so what I feel like we're able to do with the study is like, okay, it's not the infrastructure. And we also, as part of the e-check, we did speed tests too. So we have a sense, it's not infrastructure. So it's somewhere in between that the problem is. And so if someone's saying that it's an infrastructure, I can tell you it's not. But I'm not saying there's not a problem. And so it's those different layers where you have issues.
Well, it's a consolation to know that you're looking at the broad picture rather than, it isn't all about broadband.
Yeah.
Even once you give broadband to somebody, it doesn't mean that they can use it. Thank you.
Wonderful presentation. 6 months, we'll welcome you back.
Thank you for being so patient and persistent.
So, Holly, one final question. Is it okay if we send the slides out after the?
They're also available online if you query broadband study Arlington County.
Okay.
You will find the slides.
Yeah,
as
wonderful.
well
Thank
as
you.
the-
Well, I would say on behalf of the Commission on Aging, if you want to tap into our population as you evaluate the delivery models, to get actually Helen, Rachel, so because we'd be very delighted to help. And one comment I would make that those who can afford some resources, sometimes we don't know where to look. And I don't know if there is in that thinking, is there a way to vet resources or at least even list them? So we have a better sense than calling an 800 number at, infinity or whatever and trying to figure out what's going on. So this is delightful. And the fact that you have this kind of information and you're working on it. And I think in terms of broadband, Arlington is well served. So I appreciate that point.
Are the slides online? You said that
Yes.
at the query.
And do you guys know Doug?
Yes, oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
The slides that you saw and 124-page full report,
Right.
all of the details, all available online.
Right.
And what's the site? What's the?
You're gonna send them out.
If there's a hard model.
There's,
We can make sure that the link is sent to the site as well.
there's also, in addition to this, to those two resources, there's a recorded presentation from the consultants of the slide deck. In addition, staff, even though the consultants process of like stakeholder feedback has concluded with the needs assessment, we still want to collect information. And so there's a comment form that's linked on the website. So if you have any concerns or you just want to share any feedback
What's the
about.
website address?
We'll send it out, but I can look it up right now so we can give it to you. I can't.
Okay, that's okay. You guys send it up. That's.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll
just send it to me and I'll send it out with
Yep.
with a follow-up from
Yep.
the meeting.
Yeah, I'll do.
Because this is really a good presentation. Good stuff.
We ought to all recognize the voice that we just heard. Doug Frost has played a significant role for decades, helping bridge the gap between ideas, funding, and action.
Thank you, Link. I'm not that old.
Love it.
It's just nice to see so many young.
Okay,
That's right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Thank you.
now I'm supposed to, I think, very briefly, give a report on my committee.
Yes, sir. Please go.
Positive Aging, Inclusion, and Enrichment Committee. Complicated name, but it really, those few words capitalized exactly what we're supposed to do. Social participation, get seniors involved, civic participation, get other entities involved, respect and social inclusion, walking school bus intergenerational. Major progress there, working on expanding it from the pilot in Oak Ridge to other schools, outdoor spaces and buildings. Monitoring the county's progress against a strategic plan for the buildings, making sure that older adults are included. I would say most of the conversation we had here is how do we get the older adults more helpful and included? And lastly, spam and elder abuse, a new activity that our committee has taken on this year to foster awareness and prevention. We're starting to plan, we're implementing presentations throughout the county in the areas most affected. I want to shift for a second for the last thing. There are three things upsetting our future that's going to make a huge difference on our staff's workload and the success of the county. Surging immigrant population, unplanned, free benefits, interrupting urban life. And that we already see causing significant food and housing shortages. Deficit spending, surge in spending beyond any expected means, causing inflation, increased cost of living, and economic insecurity, uncertainty, facing all of us. But we at the table are able to handle it. There's an awful lot of folks that are not. They're struggling. And our role here on the commission, I think, is to be aware of and help prepare for this tsunami coming down the pipe. And the last one is rule of law. It appears to me that by not enforcing laws, we have thrown laws aside. And that has profound long-term implications. Arlington is an incredible county, has been and should always be. Perhaps we can lead the charge in following whatever the existing laws are. And if we think they're wrong, work on changing them rather than ignoring them. I submit we all ought to think very clearly on those three things coming at us that's going to make a profound difference. We need to help our seniors. Amen.
What laws are you referring to?
Well, let's start with inflation. Let's start with robbery. Let's start with murder. All of those are not being prosecuted, at least for part of the, it's not a political statement, but a factual statement.
I think we're all, the concern about respecting the rule of law is one I think we can agree on. Perhaps some of the details we might be able to debate, but I agree with you. I think it's important to bring these points to the attention of everyone because it is straining some of the nonprofit community and it ultimately will strain Arlington as well. So it's thoughtful to bring these up to talk about how we move forward and how we respect one another in the meetings we participate in and how we can influence others to do so as well. Thank you, Link. Any other comments of Link or questions? Right. I am going to chug along here and ask if the April minutes were submitted for your approval. Are there any additions or corrections to the April minutes? If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes? William, motions to approve the minutes as written,
Second.
and Kate and Jim second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Right, I will now give my chair's report. I'll try to be brief. We have several commission positions that are open, and I would encourage you to once again spread the word, encouraging those who represent our community to step forward and be involved. I think it's really important that we have raised our voices as older adults, and we must make sure that those voices represent the great fabric of our county. So as you are out in your community groups, churches, workplaces, if you will please bring this opportunity to at the attention of your friends and fellow workers and so on, it would be wonderful. The next item I would mention is that we have several chairs who are currently chairing committees who will be stepping down at the end of September. Link with PAIEC, and you have a vice chair. I presume you're bringing your vice chair on up to
Yes,
speed.
as much as I can.
Okay.
She's also diluted by being on the.
So if you feel that may not move forward, if you can bring it to our attention, so that because your committee work is vital. Cheryl, you have a very strong co-chair. The same point would be made to you. I presume you two have had the conversation. And we'll hope the expectation and result is affirmative on your co-chair's part so that we can continue the great work that you're doing. Did you have any comment you wanted to make, Cheryl? Regarding,
Well,
Sure.
as I haven't talked with Carlos recently about that, but over time I have mentioned that. So, hopefully by September, we'll have reached some kind of agreement. But I really do defer to Carlos regarding, next steps and who might be interested. And perhaps he's been talking with people already. So I don't know, Carlos, I would defer to you to comment.
We have had conversations
you
and
don't have to give me your answer today, but
you're stuck with me. That's the question.
we love that. And we love that. And I'm just trying to bring this once again up to the surface. I think Herschel similarly, as our legislative work continues, it's not necessarily a direct part of Age-Friendly Arlington, but our involvement with the political system locally, state and statewide is extremely important. And Herschel, if you do not have someone within your kind of vision where you think could step up to your position, I hope that you will ask for help so that we can make sure that.
Well, I think Anthony,
Okay.
I think it maybe after the primaries. we'll
All right, so what I'm,
talk to some of the legislators,
great.
introduce Anthony to.
So what I'm suggesting is that y'all have your first date. If you don't have it soon, somebody's gonna fix you up. Yes, Jim.
One of the problems that I might mention in co-chairs is there are 6 committees. That's 12 people right there who have to be a co-chair. So there's only 17 of us, and that's a problem, a logistical problem.
But everybody should be involved.
But
Yeah,
true,
sure.
you don't have to have a co-chair. So if you don't, and you're looking around for someone who might take your place, that's an important thing to bring to Helen and Rachel's attention.
Well, the co-chairs don't have to be on the
Right,
commission, but
Right.
that means they won't be able to take over,
right, right.
but they can share.
We share the work. Good point. Okay. So you've been warned that the prom is coming up and you better find your date or somebody will be tapping you on the shoulder. All right. Age-friendly, we are about to turn in our big, wonderful report. Comments are due by May the 20th, and I'm sure Erica will go into more detail. But the one point I wanted to make is one of my assignments was to ask if our liaison who will be leaving the county, Katie Crystal, would write our forward, and she has said yes. So I'll follow up with you on a draft letter and we'll get that to her in the next week. And finally, speaking of political issues, we have the delight of working with Arlington Neighborhood Village and Culpeper Garden on a forum for older adults among the Democratic candidates for county board. 4 of the 5 are coming on May 18th from 2 to 3:30 at Culpeper Garden. All are welcome. The notice went out broadly. I saw Patrick Hope the other day and he said he's coming. So it's fun that we'll have at least one local official who is choosing to come as well. I don't know if Matt DeFerrante will come. He's come to some of the others. Cheryl and Carlos have been working on format, and I think you'll go into detail on that when you get to your report today and cover some of the what ifs that y'all have been circulating and been concerned about. That is the nature of my report. If you have any, yes.
You said 4 or 5, out there 6?
There are 5 candidates, Democratic candidates.
There's 6.
Okay.
Who's the 6th one?
Jonathan, I can never.
Well, we're gonna miss one. June Gooley cannot make it.
Natalie Roy.
Yeah, we have all of them but one. So however many there are,
Well, there are 6
Okay.
candidates.
I think I've written to all of them. I'm a little fuzzy this morning, but yes, ma'am.
I just wonder if the notice actually did go out as broadly as it needs to. I haven't seen a notice, and several people asked me, when is it? Where is it? So I wonder if we could send it out again, send it out more broadly.
So a couple of, in response to that question, we are not, the county is not allowed to send it out for us because it's a political issue. Brian has said no. And that's the reason. She would love to, but she said no. So it has gone to A and B. And I've sent it to Culpeper Garden. I think the commission has sent it out. We can include we can include the notice and you are welcome to broadcast it further.
So for example, NVAN, I guess, even though it's just Arlington, but perhaps NVAN, or there may be others.
I'll go ahead and forward the notice to Herschel. And do you want to, I have one. Do you want to just send it out to everybody? I thought I sent it out to all the commissioners.
Yeah, I thought we
Yeah.
did, but yeah.
I thought we did too. Erica, I might have not sent it to you because you're not a sitting commissioner. So,
I mean, I can include a notice with a follow-up for this meeting.
yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's kind of I think the big deal is where do you park? And you cannot park on the grounds of Culpeper Garden. They don't have enough space. So you can park in the neighborhood or you can park at Lover Run and walk a block. Or rent your bicycle. All right, but that'll be this week. And I think it's really important. I want to thank Anthony, who has collected questions, and he has been working with Cheryl and Carlos. They have done this before, so they've taken a little bit of license with the run of show, so to speak. And I think once we get through, and when you're doing your report, if you want to provide any additional details, if you don't mind, because I don't want to take thunder away from your committee report. Any questions of me? Okay. Oh, and by the way, I will not be chair as of the end of September, right? And so if somebody would like to sit right here in my place, I'll be asking someone to the dance. Just so you know. Okay, if there are no questions of me, I'm going to turn it back over to Helen and Rachel.
Okay, great. And so I'm gonna let Rachel give her report first this morning, since she has another commitment. She's gonna need to leave early. So.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I apologize. I have to be in court shortly for an adult protective services case. But it's good to see you all. May is a very busy month. It is Older Americans Month. And this month is Aging Unbound. That's the theme for this year's Older Americans Month. Helen's been doing a great job in sharing with our staff and some of our county colleagues, different themes for the week, really spotlighting ageism. And two events I want to call your attention to. On Tuesday, May 23rd, I think Michelle Thomas is helping to spotlight services and resources training for older Arlingtonians. That will be online from 10:30 until 12:30. And then on May 24th, from 1 to 2:30, we're doing a Dementia Friends training. So we can share both of those in the follow-up. A few other updates within the Community Supports and Coordination Bureau. We are still recruiting. We're in the recruitment phase for an adult protective services worker that closed on Friday. And so we are eagerly anticipating the applications, and we'll hopefully be able to onboard somebody very, very quickly, just because of the high volume that team has been experiencing. Our adult day program that is led by Michael DiGeronimo, and I don't know if we've done a tour of adult day, but that might be something we can eventually schedule. They have an interest list of more than 40 names. Adult Day is a fantastic program. There's a wealth of dance, physical activities, mental health activities, social activities, just a really fantastic program and really synonymous with caregiver support. It's a safe place where somebody who's experiencing maybe cognitive impairments like dementia can go and be safe, and their caregivers can continue to live or just have some time where they know their loved one is being cared for. So Adult Day, with the help of Michael, with Jim Baker, and then our colleagues over in behavioral health, the Clarendon House or Clubhouse program, we're undergoing a study to look at possible expansion options. Could that be additional locations? Could that be a different location? Could it be a shared campus? But with a wait list of over 40 people, it shows that there really is a need. And we're very limited by the space where we are now at Walter Reed. So we'll definitely share more as we learn that and as the study evolves. Last week, we had a listening session with residents at the Carlin. The Carlin is one of our independent living residences for older adults. We had about 37 residents there, and the last almost 3 years, they've been going through a lot of transition in terms of staffing, from sort of the property manager to maintenance. And so we've been meeting with residents, both really group meetings, but then individually with some of them. And we have alerted some of our colleagues at community planning, housing development about what some of the expectations are in terms of having a full-time resident service coordinator. That's in the agreement that the Carlin has with the county. There needs to be more maintenance staff that are hired in response to maintenance requests. Communication, and then sadly, the entire building is having some issues with pests and roaches. And it's a building issue. It's not tied to any one person. It's not that this person has a lot of stuff. It's the entire building, and almost all of the residents have raised their hand and shared it's something they're experiencing. So Galari Basiri, who's part of the Agency on Aging, is at the Carlin once a week, and has really built a relationship with the residents. And we are looking for, again, just ongoing support to the Resident Service Council. But we wanted to share this information with you all as well, so that you are informed, and we'll keep you updated with any further updates. The Arlington Homelessness, the Continuum of Care, released their study in the most recent point in time study. As a whole, Arlington experienced a 17% increase in homelessness across the board. We are continuing to see this with our older adults, and we appreciate next month that we'll be able to spotlight homelessness and evictions for our older adults. It is a growing challenge, and the needs of our older adults are much more specialized, and we need to have that type of approach. Link, I really appreciate you bringing up older adults who are just adults, individuals who are undocumented. That is a trend that we're seeing as well. And when somebody does not have status, they're also very limited from accessing any other benefits, including Medicaid. And so we do have situations and experiences. Oftentimes we work with the hospital, we work with our housing nonprofit partners. But a big challenge that we're seeing is older adults who are undocumented, who need nursing home level of care. And this might be something we even talk about in NBAN in the future, because this is not just impacting Arlington. And we need more of a regional and statewide approach to addressing these types of needs, because they are becoming more and more frequent. On a brighter note, Linda did share, I guess, I don't know if it's a brighter note or not, but Katie Crystal is stepping down. She's been our liaison to the Commission on Aging. We have a little card that we can pass around if you'd like to sign as a thank you. Katie Crystal was our liaison when Arlington became an age-friendly community, and she's been such a long champion. We don't have information yet who will be the next liaison when she steps down on July 1st. But as soon as we hear that, we will provide an update. And then just the last thing, this commission is so active. And so just a reminder that there is a Democratic primary on June 20th. And there are opportunities for early voting that opened on May 5th at the Bosman Government Center, the one in Courthouse. But everybody is welcome to vote in the June 20th primary. It is ranked choice voting. So please visit the county's voting, the registrar website that has a really nice kind of walkthrough and practice of, I think they have like, what's your favorite ice cream? But it helps to kind of prepare for ranked choice voting. And then I know Helen's got some big updates, especially one we heard from the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services next week. So I'll hand it over to Helen.
Rachel,
Yeah.
just one thing, the ranked choice voting is only for the county board candidates.
Thank you, Joe. Yes.
The rest of it will be the regular way.
Oh, thanks, Joe.
Thanks for that update. Yes. All right. So good morning, everyone. Good to see all of you. So as Rachel mentioned, last week we had our B4A, which is the Virginia Association of Area Agencies on Aging. So all of the Agency on Aging directors get together once a quarter. We had our meeting last week in Richmond, and the big announcement that came out of the meeting this time is that effective July the 1st, DARS is going to be doing a little reorganization. This is a direct result of some legislation that was passed about 2 years ago to do a study on whether the state unit on aging needed to be its own entity or if it was appropriate to be within DARS. And so what is happening, there was a lot of conversations over the 2 years. In our January meeting, Secretary Littell mentioned that if the current General Assembly didn't come up with a solution, that he could see a reorganization being something very easy to do. And so that's what's happening. So effective July 1st, there will be a department of, or division of aging services that will be separate from the division for community living and separate from the division that houses adult services and adult protective services. They will be posting for a division director. The programs that will be contained in this new division for aging services will be things like the no wrong door, the communication referral information. So like what our ADRC, the functions our ADRC performs, caregiver services, dementia services, legal services, congregate and home delivered meals, VICAP, the chronic disease self-management, and the lifespan respite programs and grand driver programs. So primarily the programs that are funded by Older Americans Act dollars. Within the Department of, or the Division of Community Living will remain things like the brain injury programs, the long-term case management, auxiliary grant, and the public guardianship and conservatorship programs. Those will remain in the Department for Community Living. So there will probably be much more about this, but you know, we're from the aging services side, at least, happy about that division. We feel like that's going to be a way for us to get a little bit more attention at the state level. There was a question last time when we talked about the budget about what defines a medically underserved area, since Arlington is now classified as one. I don't really have a lot more clear answer. We did ask DARS last week and they couldn't answer the question. So basically what we've done in our little research is that it's primarily tied to there being a shortage of primary care providers. And so however they're weighing that metric now, Arlington pops up as medically underserved. And so we will be happy about the additional dollars that come under the chronic disease health prevention programs, and you know, look to see how we can expand our programming there. And then the other thing I just wanted to note, after the initial pass at the with the interstate funding formula, where it looked like about 11 of the agencies on aging, including Arlington and Alexandria, would be losing money, a budget amendment was put forth for $700,000 to kind of level up the field for those that were affected. Because the budget has not been passed yet, that funding is not available to us. And the best that we got out of the state representatives is maybe the budget bill will be addressed after the primary on June 20th, but it's still very uncertain on when that's going to happen. So that's what I have on that.
Couple other just quick program updates. So June 1st is our target for the start of the senior farmers market program. We're getting hundreds of calls now. But I have the booklets in my possession, which is the good first step. And so we will be just making sure those applications are ready to go and getting them sent out and ready to start accepting them on June the 1st. And just a reminder, the eligibility has increased now this year. It used to be 150% of federal poverty. It's now 185%. So more people will be eligible. And everybody who is eligible will receive $50 in coupons this year. For the last several years, it's been 45. So both exciting news. And then our Aging and Disability Resource Center, just a really quick update there. They're continuing to experience high demands of requests for financial assistance, eviction prevention assistance, and shelter referrals. And Shandia noted to me that the team is now averaging close to 1,000 contacts per month, which is just record breaking for that team. It is extraordinarily busy for them. And then I did prepare a couple slides to give that overview of the community engagement forum. The results of that. So give me just 1 minute to share my screen. And we will take a look at that.
And while Helen pulls that up, just really quickly, our former commissioner, Martha Villavigra Santiago, dropped off some little cards about Brain Info Services. This is a group she's now connected to. It's a free interactive streaming series on Alzheimer's, dementia, and brain health. If you'd like to grab a card or share it with your networks, you're more than welcome.
Okay, great job. Okay, so here's just a quick preliminary look at the Community Engagement Forum. We are finalizing the report that Shandia does every year, but wanted to bring just a few statistics here too for you all to see. And again, it was a great event. Just a reminder, it was held on Monday, March the 21st. It was another hybrid. We were primarily in person this time, whereas last year we were primarily on Zoom. But we had access on Zoom for those that wanted to attend. And then we had 2 sites where they were streaming the event, and then they held their own in-person breakout session. We had over 200 people registered and about 180 in attendance when we added up all the different groups. Our keynote speaker was Susan Ryan. And again, we had in-person and virtual breakout rooms. So from the online registration, just a couple of the statistics. So first of all, 68% of the people that registered said that this was their first time attending. And so that number has tended to be pretty high over the last couple of years. So I don't know if we're just getting more people and more of them are first timers, or people who have attended are not coming back the next year. But how people heard about the event, it was primarily word of mouth and email was what was reported. I remember one of my first Commission on Aging meetings, Valerie Crotty said, the way everybody gets their information is Arlington Now. It appears that that's not 100% of the case, at least for the events that we're pushing forward. So the Arlington County website, word of mouth and email were the top 3. And then the other interesting thing was the other zip codes. So people outside of Arlington were the biggest attenders. And so I think probably Susan Ryan was a draw. I know we had a lot of people from the age-friendly network in the area that attended. So there were Rockville, Hyattsville, some other Maryland zip codes that were included in the mix, but
This included virtual.
yes, yeah, this was just on the online registrations, correct? Okay. And then we did the survey afterwards, the post-event survey, and we got 44 people that responded. So about 11 more than what responded last year. 66% of the people that responded were attended in person, and 34% attended online. And, just some of the demographic information is fairly consistent with what we've seen before. The majority of the responses, people indicated they were between 75 and 84, primarily female, primarily living in 22203, and 73% said that this was their first time attending. Okay. So, this chart, we just add to it every year with what has come out of the question that we asked, which is what matters most, okay? And this year, consistent again with the past several, housing is the top concern of what matters most, and primarily affordability, the ability to age in place, having options for housing, and then home renovation programs also came up consistently this year. Access to healthcare came in second this year. People are really concerned about having consistent access to their healthcare network. Transportation, having safe, accessible transportation, and also having options in transportation. Social connections was fourth. I need to just move this over a little bit. So that was things like technology literacy, which we heard about today. Options for all abilities, and then a consistent platform for county services. So if I go to fill out an application on one part of the Arlington County site, does it look the same as if I'm looking at another part of the Arlington County site? Apparently not, and people would like to see more consistency there. And then, also being mindful of things like the building acoustics, right? So if I go to a meeting, am I going to be able to hear if I'm using my hearing aids or something like that? And then the last concern is mobility. And so this revolved around, do we have programs to maintain or increase mobility of older adults? Is there available handicap parking? Give me just 1 second, Jim. And then are there visible signs and safe sidewalks to get there? Okay, Jim.
I'd suggest that mobility and transportation, in our view, are combined, so, it's same thing.
Okay,
Concur.
okay. And then just a couple other things I wanted to highlight. So you hear us talk occasionally about our area plan. Every 4 years, produce the area plan document that describes how we're going to deliver services within our area agency on aging. So every 4 years we do a big document, and then the subsequent 3 years we do an update to that document. So this year is our year to do the larger area plan document. And so some of the inputs to our area plan are things like the community data. So the information that we get from the community engagement forum. And I'm going to talk in a minute about the survey that DARS did also earlier this year as another source to that input. And then we are also looking at trends and unmet needs to define how are we going to implement those programs? Do we need to change anything that we're doing? Do we need to add anything? Do we need to take anything away? So that process is underway right now. One of the inputs or another input on community needs, it was this community assessment survey for older adults that DARS actually conducted starting last September. And so this was a statewide assessment. If we had enough participants, we were also able to get local information, which Arlington did. And so it rated overall answers. I'm not sure if I'm still online. Candia, am I still online?
It's still
Oh, you
online on
fixed
this end, but it's
Fixed
very
it, okay.
flashy.
Okay, so
And now you're
community
back.
design, employment and finances, equity and inclusivity, health and wellness, information and assistance, and productive activities. So we received information on the Arlington level in late January. And so I have a couple of those results that I'll share with you now also. So looking demographically again, we had 437 respondents from Arlington, primarily in the 65 to 74 range, but really sort of representing all of the age groups that are considered older adults. 53 female, and 83% of the respondents were white. Okay, and some of the positive results that we got for Arlington, 90% rate the overall quality of life as excellent or good. 88% that rated their overall quality of transportation as excellent or good. And 88% saw the overall economic health positively. 81% rated their physical health and 88% rated their mental health as excellent or good. 71% plan to stay in Arlington throughout their retirement, and 53% indicate that this community values older residents. On the not so good side, this is not surprising. Only 17% of the individuals rated the cost of living as excellent or good. 43% rated employment opportunities as low. 30% report care is a challenge, and 26% have information access challenges. So those are all things that we'll be looking at and trying to incorporate as we develop our area plan. So are there any questions?
Good summary.
What was that for on the first slide of results? Was 50-some% of residents felt Arlington County was good for older persons, or
53% indicate community values older residents. Is that?
I'm kind of surprised it's only 53%. How do you interpret that?
So I mean, I think tying it to, looking at what we're looking at right now with ageism and all of that, right? I do think that there is a perception potentially that, the younger generations get all of the programs and all the services, right? Versus, what's available for older adults. That could be one thing. I would have to look at the data a little bit more closely to see if there's any deeper insights into why that's only 53%, but I can do that, Charlie.
It doesn't seem to be consistent with all the other positive results. It seems to be unusually low.
Right. Yep. Yes, Audrey.
On a more practical note, do you have any takeaways from the forum in terms of what we would do differently next year?
So again, we're finalizing up that report of, the more specific details, and we're hoping to have that out within the next month. But yes, we will have that kind of information of what to do next year.
Not that we're ready to start engaging, but.
We'll be starting to think about it again soon. So.
We need a theme, right?
Yes, exactly. All right, any other questions for me? All right, thanks, everyone.
And I should mention, and perhaps Kate, you'll take a moment, and we've all been invited to participate virtually in a focus group. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
Just as a reminder.
Yeah, as a reminder, everybody here in the room is invited to participate in the Community Health Needs Assessment, which is a requirement of Virginia Hospital Center to do every 3 years. There's going to be a focus group a week from today, the 22nd, 2 to 4 p.m. If you did not receive a link to log into that, please reach out to me. We can get that sent to you without any problem. It'll be run, I'm coordinating it, but it'll be others that are facilitating the focus group and conversation there with CRO. That's the consulting group that VHC is working with. So any questions or?
Great. And I think we have a few extra people who have been.
And I think they'll be able to fit in. We've not reached the max, so we'll be able to incorporate it.
Excellent. Did we need to RSVP?
That was ideal, just so we were assured not to reach the max. We have a certain limit.
So if you
had at this point, I feel like all the invitations that have gone out, if everyone showed up, we'd be okay based on that. So
okay.
I'm not worried at this point.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. And
but on that note, please don't just send forward on your link to somebody else without reaching out to me.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. I think that's very helpful. That reminder is important to all of us. This is a really valued opportunity for all of us to provide thoughtful input. Okay. It is time for a break, or it was 27 minutes ago. Shall I allow you to take a break on your own recognizance and keep plugging along? Okay. Yes. All right. Then Audrey, don't leave the room. It's your turn to please give your report.
I just want to start by reiterating what the Community Engagement Forum talked about as the primary concern is housing. I can't underestimate how important it is for everything else, transportation, access to internet, all of these things, food security, fall under housing. If you aren't housing secure, that's what you focus on. Affordability of housing in Arlington, as we know, is a major issue. We had our first meeting with me as the chair several weeks ago. I've since been in Nevada and California and that have real cleared my mind. But in any case, one of the important things, and Cindy Schneider is doing the heavy lifting on this, is tracking the projects that Sunrise is doing in North and South Arlington and pushing every which way to get some affordable units in there. And that's a slow process, and she's on top of that. Pleased that she's continuing to do that. We talked about the universal design checklist and
Yeah, I do have a slight update. So we met with, two planning commission members to sort of present what we've done, where we are and what should come next. And they recommended that we, work with the Disability Advisory Commission and, get back to them. They're very interested, they're very positive, but they want to make sure that the conditions are on board.
that's good. Yeah, sounds like good program. Yeah.
Do you think a future opportunity then would be to go and speak with the Disability Advisory Commission?
Well, if we had had a break, I was gonna make a beeline and tell you that, we have been invited to make a, remote, virtual presentation at their meeting tomorrow.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great. Good for you.
Yeah, so, please.
I have a very active and supportive committee. So thank you. We talked about real estate tax relief. The county is not scheduled to review that for a while, but we are looking for more current data. I don't know, Helen, if you were able to find out anything.
Not yet.
Okay. There's some issues about whether it's adequate and whether it's going to the right people and whether it's serving Arlington in the best possible way. And we have deep conversation about the eviction process. That's going to come up in our next meeting is tomorrow. And Shandia is going to give us an update on the eviction process. I did, while I was in California, do an eviction process webinar that was incredibly detailed and deeper than I needed to know about the process, schedules, conflicts, the coordination that goes on. And if anybody is interested, I have a link to the recording and a link to the slides. So if you have any interest in eviction, it was, I think,
Communicating with you at all, because if not, you may want to just touch base with them. Years ago, when I worked for APA, we were part of a panel to come in and talk about eviction, not age related, but they might be doing things that are a lot more sophisticated than we were back then.
okay, thank you. I will. And our next meeting is tomorrow, if anybody is interested. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate all that you're doing, and I agree with you. I think housing, I think also one of the other comments is that we're now involved in the continuum of care. Is that right? Mm-hmm. So the percentage of older adults who are path forward clients experiencing homelessness is also increasing. We drew attention to those who were perhaps undocumented, but otherwise their population is increasing in terms of the age of those who are experiencing homelessness. So thank you so much for all you do. Okay, Any questions of Audrey before we move on? Herschel, legislative.
Okay, I wanted to, have our next meeting, in June, first Monday, and not meet in July and August. So that would be it. I guess you can schedule it.
Yes. Yeah.
On the legislative forum, which is off in the future, actually, I've asked Cheryl to, she would be the MC again.
Busy girl.
She has agreed. And so that we're thinking of, unless, have different ideas of having it on Zoom again, that we can get, probably better attendance legislators. And I guess Helen and I will pick out some dates and maybe I'll send them to the legislators and say, do you know any reason at this point why these dates are a problem? And maybe we'll do, maybe we'll go back to the Thursday, 2 days after the election, and try that. But, and hopefully we'll do better. It worked out very well with 2 legislators, but I was very nervous that one or both of them at the last minute would have a problem. You have 6, then if one drops out, hopefully we'll have better attendance, at least one senator and one.
So your recommendation going forward is that you continue to make it virtual, so it's easy.
Yeah, unless anybody, I don't know, Joan.
No, I think that's what, when we met, the legislative committee met, a couple of weeks ago, that was the idea.
I mean, it's nice to meet people in person, but it turns out to be very convenient and, if, you know, people have meetings someplace else. As it turned out, there were 2 people out of town who thought they might be able to attend and then couldn't. But there would have been absolutely no chance. Person. The elevator meets tomorrow, and I have not received any notice yet on that. Anybody else? Okay. And they sent out the form for us to vote on what we thought were the 5 that's the most interesting budget and legislative issues. And I wouldn't have gotten it if Helen had forwarded it, so I don't know.
I didn't get it this time either.
I got it.
So you,
Did you?
Yeah.
okay, so you got it, but you got it from Helen.
Either Helen or Terry, I don't know who applies.
So Terry sends out the notices.
You know, when you said
So-
you forwarded
I forwarded it to you because you said you haven't gotten it.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I went back and looked and I couldn't find one from Terry.
And I was someone who didn't get that either. I've been checking my phone to see if the form for tomorrow has been sent out, the choices. I haven't gotten it.
I think the notice that's going out today, I hope it's today, will give the results of that first polling down. So that each person got to vote for 5 items, and then at the end of the meeting tomorrow, we'll reduce that to the 3 top priorities. So, but people will want to know today what the 5 legislative and 5 budget, out of which they can pick 3, what those are. So hopefully you'll see that.
Anyway, once the issues are chosen, there are committees that prepare backup papers. So if anyone either has knowledge or wants to learn about one of the 6 issues, the committees are open.
Okay. All right, well, maybe you can bring that up to us, or let us know, and it can be sent out to all the commissioner members so that we have a chance to take a look at that. Any questions for Herschel?
I guess that's it.
Is that it? Okay, I didn't mean to cut you off there, sir. Any update on the long-term care residencies?
So, Maimuna had to drop off, but she's still hoping somebody else from the committee can offer an update.
I'll jump in real quick. Do you have something you wanted to?
No, go ahead.
I think one of the things that was really quite important was one of the meetings previously, they brought the administrators together, and it is unusual to have the private assisted living and nursing home administrators in conversation with the nonprofit. So I think they learned from each other, and it's very valuable. To get their time is extremely difficult, and there continues to be kind of a fair amount of turnover in that industry. It's quite difficult to keep staff.
Yeah, we did have someone from Jefferson, but not two of three freestanding nursing homes, which was a little bit of a disappointment. And I've talked to Erica about the idea of getting community advisory council, that idea to the nursing homes, because that's never been done before, and trying to pursue that with the one that I'm liaison to.
I think that's really laudatory. I wish you good luck. It's hard. It's really quite hard. I know my own experience in Culpeper Garden is hard. The transition among if you're bringing people from the community to continue to keep them engaged as individuals move on and pass away and seek higher levels of care. So,
I mean, our long-term vision is quite beyond what we have now, and that is the Susan Ryan vision of converting nursing homes into smaller home-like settings. And that's going to be a generational goal.
it's a construction goal too.
Right.
Indeed, I thank you for doing that. I think that would be wonderful. Any comments or questions of Charlie? Great, I'm gonna move on to positive aging and inclusion. I want to say thank you so much for this update today. Did you have anything further that you wanted to add?
Yes, two things. My committee is a catalyst, motivator, encourager, supporter of all things that can help older adults get the most out of their remaining lives. To that, I think it is a tremendously important activity. My second point, I'd like to give a shout out to Carlos and Cheryl for helping to engineer, MC, organize a podcast for 3 centenarians. It was held at the Jefferson, and I suspect it's widely broadcast now. It was a delight to see 3 independent people interviewed and their reactions to life. You'll have to watch the podcast to really understand what I just said.
It was great. It was great. Congratulations. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, and thank you all for doing it. Wonderful. All right, I'm going to move on to public information and outreach. And Carlos and Cheryl, if you'll talk a little bit about the plan for the May 18th and reflect, of course, on what Lynn just said, among other things. Cheryl, you're up.
You mute.
I'm gonna defer to Carlos first.
Thank you so much. We've been texting each other back and forth, but I have to laugh because you don't know this, show, but your face is humongous right now. So I can see I'm just texting you. I'm like, I know what she's gonna do right now. It's in real time. Technology is amazing. So yes, we have gone through, have developed them on a show. The questions are set, the times are set. We have the technology set up. a big question is more the logistics, and I'm wondering, because I think Martha is online right now, right, from, Culpeper?
She was,
Oh, is she gone?
looks like she's gone.
Oh, she's gone.
Oh, no, there she is.
So.
I'm here.
I was hoping to do a quick little visit and maybe do, a site visit so that we can ask questions about the setup. Is that possible?
Certainly,
so I'll
of
get on-
course, of course.
Yeah, because, only because the forum that I helped, support previously, I mean, it went really, really well, but literally we showed up and there were a lot of things missing from the space. And the more prep we have, the better. That way everything runs smoothly. There might be surprises, but hopefully less surprises. And we will look good. Now, the other question I have, are we allowed to record this?
I don't see why not.
Because I think it'd be great if we could.
I don't,
Oh, we can't
I don't know
disseminate it,
who
right?
has the technology
I
available.
don't know who
to do
has set
that.
up the Zoom for it, but
I mean, I could do
We're
it, but the
not,
question
yeah.
is, if we do it, are we allowed the group to disseminate it then? Or just, is it worth recording?
are you doing a virtual component to it?
No, we just want to record it. Okay, as long as we don't.
Just announce it.
It's, I mean, yeah,
Okay. It would be nice, it would be nice. But we would like to get some volunteers if they could help, be early, just to make sure everything's, set up well. I know there'll be staff from the center or Culpeper, but it'd be nice to have more there, just to meet and greet people and say people feel welcome. So anyway, so logistically, we need that kind of support, and I'll reach out to Martha to do the site visit, and that way we can take care of any surprises. Anything else, Joe, that I'm missing?
No, guess I'm just still a little uncertain in terms of who's coming. I don't have the list of the candidates. Who are they? Because obviously what we want to do is, rotate in terms of how I ask the questions. I'm hearing two different things. I thought, Linda, you said there were 4 candidates, and then I also understand there's 5 candidates.
There are 5 of 6. I just made a list. Sorry, my head wasn't, in the game here a moment ago. We have 5 of 6 who will be attending. I'll send you their names.
Right, yeah, because that'll be helpful for me. I guess I'm also curious to know when Carlos and I put our heads together, we talked about questions from the audience. Is that still the case? Will we have time? I guess obviously I can work with Carlos in terms of, what the time looks like, but is that an expectation?
I'll tell you what, why don't you all hook me into your meeting with Marta, and I'll be happy to. I think we were talking about taking questions from the audience. I don't know that there'll be written questions, which might be a little difficult, but we also will need some microphone opportunity to make sure everybody is heard. But we can cover some of those logistics and not take other folks' time, unless y'all want to hear it, then we can go over it if you want to. There's going to be a table where Marta is helping so that anyone who's a Spanish speaker and needs translation, that can happen.
Okay. That'll be helpful. And I was wondering also if I could come over there maybe with Carlos and just have a quick walkthrough so I kind of know what to expect, maybe on Wednesday or something. Maybe we can talk
Absolutely.
about that. So
Sure.
that'll be fine. Okay. All right. Carlos, did you want to talk about the centenarian? And otherwise, why don't you do that? And then I'll talk quickly about senior ambassador program, and then just reiterate about what's happening in terms of the PIO meeting or not happening. So.
Could I just make one,
Yes.
if you do have time for questions from the audience, I would strongly recommend that they be written on cards and not,
Yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. So
not
we'll let the questions up front, and all questions will be addressed. If they don't have time, then we're gonna ask for written responses. So, yeah. So the Centenarian Today podcast launch happened, and it was successful. We tried to limit the number of people that were invited to attend in person because of the potential spread of COVID, and we had a little bit of a scare, but everyone's fine. Everyone tested negative -1 yesterday, we're looking at right now. And so, fortunately, she's, Cheryl's doing much better and she'll be prepared and able to do the forum for us. And so, good to hear that you're doing better, Cheryl, but it is scary, you just never know. You never know. At any rate, it was well attended by both residents, from the community as well as people from outside the community. We had wonderful presence and support from the foundation as well as our own folks here. And what I thought was the most impressive were the centenarians. I mean, the responses they had were just amazing. And they were funny, they were touching, they were insightful. And the podcast was launched that afternoon. So if you go to the Seabury website, at least episodes 1 and 2 are available to listen to. Episode 3 will go on Thursday. And the funding was allowing 7 interviews. So if you know any other centenarian, I'm missing one. We lost one, not because we lost them, but they're just not well enough to be interviewed. But we're still missing one. So if you know anybody that might have access to a centenarian that's able to tell their story well enough, that would be great. And then I did submit an evaluation link to those who attended and who gave some responses. So I'll send a summary of the evaluation results with that. But otherwise, it was successful, and we hope to maybe the foundation will consider funding next year, and hopefully our other programs get funded next year too. That's all I have, Cheryl.
Okay, very quickly, excuse me. From Michelle McMahon and Wendy Zanker in connection with the Senior Ambassador Program. As I understand it, they've hired a recent Marymount University graduate for the internship that they posted. And so they've met a couple times, Michelle and this person, and they're getting underway with template designs for the various binder pages. So that's a good thing. And Michelle and Wendy have also been working on the advisory group for the development of the ambassador program. And right now, Helen King and Brenda Cox have agreed to serve, and invitations are out to others. And then the third thing is that they are continuing to seek additional funding and waiting to hear. So the Senior Ambassador Program is underway. So that's very exciting. And then the final thing that I have is that the PIO meeting, which is ordinarily at the end of this month. Kate, thank you again for allowing some of the people, or people who are interested, I should say, to attend the event next Monday afternoon. And apparently several people have expressed interest, and I forwarded their email to Kate. So there will not be a PIO meeting formally this month. We'll reconvene again in July. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions of Cheryl or Carlos? We're going to move on to transportation. Jim and William.
Yeah, let me start off with just a comment on the results of the community engagement forum. I'm always amazed when transportation appears so far up in people's concerns, principally because there's so much transportation available in our county. We're really very fortunate. And I've often wondered why. And I guess the answer is that a lot of people want to go a lot of places. So they're concerned about not being able to get there. Just a vote on the owl, on the more than one committee. Michael Schuster, who is Alexandria's liaison to the legislative committee, has introduced us to their committee on transportation, and Bill Campbell, who's their chairman, and I, and William will get together sometime in the near future, and maybe all of us. We might just invite him to one of our meetings. I sent him a clip of what we've been doing and what our responsibilities are. And I haven't heard from him yet, but I'm sure I will. The audible crosswalk signals. we've had 2 more people join Leroy in his concern about not being able to know when it's safe to cross if you're vision challenged. And so I've done an informal survey of about, I guess, 20 crosswalks. And I found in the 23 of which I consider capable of supporting vision challenged people. And of course, the problem is that even though many of the crosswalks have a voice or a gong or something, very few of them tell you which street is open to cross. The 3 are one in Randolph and Glebe, which is superb. It tells you exactly when you can cross and which street is open. The other 2 are the new flashing lights on crosswalks, and there's more than 2, but I've just looked at 2. They're particularly good because if you're vision challenged, you have to punch the button, and these crosswalks only indicate, and it's verbal indication as well, that it's safe to cross the major highway. All of them are located on smaller roads or smaller streets and larger streets, like, for example, Wilson Boulevard and 10th Street. So I guess we're ready to talk to somebody. I've tried to contact Nate Graham. I've written him 2 or 3 emails, and I've called 2 or 3 times. I can't seem to get a response. I wonder if you could help on that.
Yeah, I'll reach out.
And also, I wonder, since this is more of a disabilities problem than an aging problem, I wonder if we should bring disabilities people in on this. Is this something that should be done?
That makes sense. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Good. Can we get together on that?
Yep.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay. Wendy indicated that there were 2 changes that need to be made in the aging friendly report. And one of them is the rideability of A and B, 1,370 round trips, big deal. And the other is a resource handbook. It was sent to you as well as me. Is that underway? Are those changes being made?
Yeah, so, just skipping ahead a little bit to the age friendly, so the draft, that was in the draft report.
Oh, good.
Cynthia is out of town, but, that gives everybody another bite at the apple. This is her bite at the apple, so be sure and take it in, especially community shares and in Cindy's case, past share, to really look at it and make sure that, what is in the draft report is properly translated from what you all gave us.
Great. The last thing I would suggest is that if in your neighborhood and your neighborhood has aging in place people in it, these are the hardest people to reach. These are the hardest people to understand what their problems are. In my neighborhood, for example, we have a lack of sidewalks over a very critical area. And we have a lot of aging in place people, and I watched people walk down the middle of the road, which is not a good idea in any neighborhood. Also, we've had the 5th accident on a traffic circle on between North Jackson and 6th Street. This the 5th since I moved in. We haven't killed anybody yet, but it can happen anytime. I contacted Vision Zero, and Christine was very helpful. There is a capability to lodge a problem area with them and they will have it researched. And we're gonna certainly do that with our island problem. So you might think about that. Okay, let me turn it over to, William on our, continuation of our outreach.
Yeah. Continue to reach out to, because we want to hear from older adults, in Arlington, so. We already went to a couple places. Next, we're going to Arlington Mill, I believe on the 2nd of June. And we're scheduling, times at the Langston and Walter Reed, Social 60 Cafe. So we'll be, Jim and I and Galera will go out and, learn from, our patrons of those places, you know, what their transportation concerns are and we'll report back.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Joan, how about Transportation Commission?
Yeah, I have just a short report. The Transportation Commission met on April 27th. They had 2 information items. I will just mention one of them. And it was the Vision Zero Transportation Equity Analysis. And equity, of course, is big in Arlington right now. And that's one of the 6 goals of the Vision Zero plan. And I just want to mention that this was data that was presented from 2017 to 2022. Census block groups identified as either lower income or higher Black, Indigenous, and people of color population experienced almost twice as many crashes per square mile than the county as a whole. These areas are identified as equity emphasis areas, EEA, another acronym for you. And zip code 22204 is disproportionately represented in the equity emphasis areas. The recommendations that Christine from Vision Zero mentioned that night were: be proactive in addressing infrastructure needs with an equity lens. Create a platform to prioritize safety projects in underserved neighborhoods. And ensure that reporting channels are clear and accessible to all community members. So equity is a goal, and you can see from the statistics that there's a need.
Thank you. Again, and you have something on transit?
Yeah, well, two months ago, it meets every other month. And 2 months ago, when we met, they said that the program they had proposed for changing STAR, which the commission commented on negatively, was still being considered, and it was going to be further comment was going to be solicited. This month, when they met, they said, no, they're starting from scratch. STAR is the Arlington supplement to Metro Access. So they're starting from scratch, and maybe I can get you the names of the people. If you just, if there's some way to be involved or have at one of your quarterly meetings.
So STAR is starting over Herschel's, the
Policy changes.
the policy changes, okay.
Yeah, that's in.
So they scrapped the proposal, which I had, our letter and in my view had its purpose of saving money rather than improving services. But in any case, they're starting over. They had a period when the person who had been responsible had left, and so it was in abeyance for for a year or more, maybe a couple of years even. The other thing is that I presume that I will be no longer a member of the committee or the accessibility subcommittee, which consists of 3 people, often of which only 2 show up. But anyway, if somebody who's from the commission, when it's not a big burden to participate.
Why are you making that assumption?
Oh, I'm making the assumption I'll be all.
Are they gonna
I've
kick you
been,
off?
I've been on the committee for 20 years. And they haven't had bylaws, and they're about to draft bylaws. And I cannot imagine that, and the bylaws will include something about rotating people off. And I presume that they will not grandfather that, but they may decide that,
Well, I think you should stay in that position until you hear further, right? You'll report back.
In fact, I think we ought to lobby for you.
anyway,
I'll carry a sign.
I'm the one, ambulatory or
Personal
one
forever,
person who doesn't consider to have challenges.
We're
I
only
may,
kidding, but
I
we
don't consider
appreciate.
myself, who's on that subcommittee that deals with accessibility. So that's why I'm particularly knowledgeable, and because there's only 3 people, I feel an obligation to show up.
Well, if you feel that you need a letter, we'll send one.
Well, Herschel, I really appreciate what you do. I didn't mean to tease you a little bit there, but thank you. I think it's an important role that you play.
Yeah, and I don't, you may want to have a presentation and discussion at some future time for the whole commission, 1 star.
Yes, I think actually that's a great idea, and you all have been it's been very important that you have been able to encourage a better look at what STAR is providing. Appreciate that.
And STAR has become a bigger issue in a sense, because it has had, it's had an effect on other programs like SCAT, for example, which is up for grabs now. And so we do need to review that.
And you may want to, when you're recruiting, find somebody who uses that, or who has challenges in terms of transportation.
Yeah.
Good point. Good thought. All right, I'm going to move on. And in the interest of time, we're about 10, 15 minutes behind. And I know H Friendly has a report. So, Jim, did you have anything else you wanted to cover
I have nothing else.
right now? Herschel, anything else you wanted to bring up? No, thank you for pointing out the STAR issue. I think that's really a good one. H Friendly, Erica, are you gonna?
Yeah. So first up, a big shout out to Cynthia Davis. I think
Yay.
You did a wonderful report graph. And if you haven't looked at it, please do, because if you want a good snapshot of everything we've done in the last 5 years, there it is. And it's, we've done a lot. It's a very, very impressive piece of work by Cynthia and by all of us for doing what we did. Also, shout out to Carlos for he's going to make the report look nice for us. And thanks, Carlos. That's very important. So like I said, get your comments in this week. So we want to make sure that we're accurate, and that's particularly committee chairs, because you more than anybody else know exactly what we've done. So we want to make sure that we're accurate into the letter. As Linda mentioned, Katie Crystal will do a transmittal letter, because the report is not just from the commission, it's from Arlington. That will go to AARP in June, and we've been told by Alexandria, which is just a little bit ahead of us, that we could probably expect some feedback from AARP. They're not just going to take it and say, oh, thanks. But they will read it carefully, and we'll probably have some feedback. And then, of course, we'll start a new cycle with a new plan. So things like, we were just talking about the community engagement forum, what came out of that. So this is all first for the mill for our new plan. So keep that in mind. Questions?
So if we have comments, we should send them to Cynthia because she, although she's out of town, will be the person making the
Yes.
edits. All right, any questions of Erica? It is a wonderful report and it is thrilling to read. Thank you so much. And I'll get with you about the Katie letter. I'll draft something for your correction and improvement. Okay. All right, moving on. Do we have Jennifer to talk about the 55 plus and the Alliance?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Just real quick, since Andrea couldn't be there, a few things going on with us is we've got, if you haven't seen it, it's online, the new summer 55 plus guide filled with lots of activities to get through the hot summer. July, really, we've concentrated on some theme months too, with July being National Parks and Recreation Month. We have a full page of programs for Pride Month in June this year that we're excited about. And then we also are starting to plan for Senior Center Month in September. But registration, the guide is online. The county's no longer printing copies. We have a few limited copies at the centers for anyone that can't access the guide online. Ask them to see one of our center directors and we'll get them a copy. But registration starts next week, May 24th at 10 a.m. for Arlington County residents and the 25th for out of county residents. So 3 months full of activities. Also coming up right now this month, tomorrow we've got Spring Go, an event held at Lover Run. And then we've also partnered, and I apologize if it's already been brought up, May 31st, we're having a health fair here in partnership with Virginia Hospital, Arlington Neighborhood Villages, Marymount. So we're excited to have that. We, in the past, had always done a senior fitness day pre-COVID. So we're excited to bring this back with partnership to make it a really large event. And it's open to everybody. You don't have to be a 55 plus member. So anyone in the community, that's May 31st at 10 a.m. And the last thing I want to say, on June 1st, we are going to be honoring our 55 plus volunteers, all of our leadership through our advisory committees, and the volunteers that have given time, like over 200 hours over the last year. And we're excited to have that recognition event back at the Jefferson this year. So we will be there on June 1st with that event. So that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions for me.
I just want to say thanks, Jennifer, for helping us reach out to the Social 60 Cafe. So appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. We're happy to have you all out, talk to them. Transportation's a big topic right now with everybody, so.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for filling us in, and you've got quite an amount of things going on. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Any questions of Jennifer before we move forward? Okay, Link, did you have anything on the Alexandria Commission on Aging?
Nothing new.
Okay, Arlington Neighborhood Village, anything from Wendy? Wendy is not.
Wendy's not here, but I sent her a quick text, and the two things that she mentioned that should be brought up have already been mentioned, both the candidate forum on May 18th, and Jennifer just mentioned the health fair on May 31st.
Great, excellent. Thank you for, how about the any questions there? Commonwealth Council on Aging.
Yeah, the Commonwealth Council on Aging met April 19th, and we heard a very interesting presentation on Medicaid redeterminations. And we even all got buttons. There's my button that says your Medicaid renewals are coming. And so the takeaway for this presentation was that a lot of folks in Virginia, a lot of Medicaid beneficiaries are at risk of losing coverage, and that they need to take action. They will all be receiving packets of information which they need to fill out and turn back in. And so a packet is going out in a staggered schedule to all enrollees, and that we, the greater collective we, need to be alert to make sure that people are watching for it and are responding to it, because if they don't, they may be in danger of losing their Medicaid.
That's really important. I presume that's going to be part of the conversation on the 31st of May at the health fair. That would be important information to disseminate. I don't know how many Medicaid eligible older adults are gonna be there, but any way to get information out is really important. Did you have any plans of what you are going to be doing, Michelle, related to this at all?
So we are just establishing a table for the Arlington Area Agency on Aging, and of course, for people who have questions, we'll engage them.
Okay.
I'll be participating with Alan's support in a presentation on webinar that's coming up soon about this upcoming process. And of course, AAA and RCAP remains highly engaged with our partners in the Medicaid office and the board. So as soon as they receive information from the state, they funnel it over to us.
It's a pretty dramatic time for anyone who has had that coverage because of the COVID support. And I know several people of various ages who are very concerned about it. So thank you for all you do, and thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else? Okay. Any further comment on anything else, Erica?
The only other thing I'll say is that the Commonwealth Council on Aging is changing, and that's due to some legislation that was passed this year by Senator, and was introduced by Senator Mason. He came to the meeting to explain his legislation and why it's important in elevating aging. We were talking about, Ellen was talking earlier about elevating aging, and this is part of that whole thing that the elevating aging work group. So instead of being based on congressional districts, it will be based on population region. And the AAAs will have a higher profile. There will be 4 AAA directors that will be members. And there are other changes too, but, and it will have a full-time staff director, which is really good.
Wow.
So changes with the company.
Great, that's great news.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. Any questions of Erica on these matters? Okay, dementia-friendly Arlington. Do we have anyone who wants to talk about dementia-friendly Arlington?
So Jessica had to drop off, but she did post a couple things in the chat. Specifically, shout out and thanks to Arlington staff under the leadership of Galari Basiri and Caitlin Stauffer for training several hundred dementia friends this year already, and their work is ongoing. They are both really very excited about the opportunities to expand dementia friends across Arlington. So some additional outreach is happening this month to local businesses and banks. And so if you're interested in hosting a session or being part of the dementia friendly initiative, do let us know. We'll put you in touch with Jessica and or Galari and Caitlin to get you involved.
Are there any upcoming trainings? I know they're virtual that you can send out to us.
Let me check in. I know that they are doing a training for the ADSD and potentially DHS staff next week. I'm not aware, but I will find out and include that in follow-up.
Okay, that'd be great. All right, thank you. Any questions? All right.
Comment on another subject.
On dementia friendly or another subject in general?
Another subject that includes.
Okay, go for it then.
Okay, just want to comment that I'm increasingly becoming aware of the presence of art in our midst. They offer a number of programs, training, help. And if you want information on aging in any aspect of it, go to the ARC website. It's manifest of tremendous information. My closing comment on this, always on the side of each of our commission meetings has been Jim Morris, who I think is an ARC representative and has a lot of other connections. We honored your presence and the help that you've been giving.
Thank you. Thank you, Link. Finally, the steering committee on older persons, Cheryl, do you have anything you wanted to tell us about that?
The meeting that was supposed to occur in this month has been canceled. And so the next meeting will be in July. So I don't know if Jim Morris is in the room with you right now.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm
Yes,
not sure what the July program is gonna be.
he's not sure what the July program is going to be just yet.
Well, that's it.
All right, okay. Thank you. Anyone have any old business? Anyone have any new business?
Can I just provide an update from Jim Baker?
Yes.
He needed to hop off, but he wanted to point out that with the 2024 budget, the county board did adopt that on April 22nd and allocated an additional $145,904 to Culpeper Garden for the housing subsidy. So, and that will be ongoing funds in addition. So that brings the total now to $852,660 for the housing subsidy at Culpeper Garden. And that is specifically to keep low-income individuals in the assisted living part of Culpeper Garden. And then in addition to that, there is $40,000 for the independent living residences, Culpeper 1 and 2, to help subsidize their meal program. So for individuals that are very low income, to make sure that they are part of the meal program. So
A summary, Culpeper Garden is an Arlington County long-term venture in helping assisted living. And it's been incredibly successful over the years.
I can say that it's hugely appreciated and a wonderful gesture. So thank you. Many communities that support older adults are faith-based. And this is Arlington's answer that is a public-private partnership, so.
And it works.
I think Jim has an announcement, Jim Morris.
Jim Morris has an announcement.
A week from Wednesday, the 24th, the Arlington AARP chapter will have a talk on the June election and especially the ranked choice voting for the 2 county board vacancies. It will be at the Central Library Auditorium at 1:15.
All right. Do you think ranked choice voting can be confusing? All right, any other announcements? Anything for the goodness of the order? May I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Okay, seconded, okay. Thank you so much for the time and spending an extra 25, 30 minutes with us today. Really appreciate it. A very full program.
Thanks, everyone.
This is a follow-up.
Thanks, Lee.
The person that was sitting over there, I didn't get her name.
I didn't either, but I think she was here on behalf of one of the candidates.
Well, we'll get her next.